Order. I ask that you all please rise and join Kevin Bobbitt and the rest of the Budget Committee in the Pledge of Allegiance. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, everybody, and welcome on this nice, warm night. Just for the record, David Ilg and Caitlin Ortega are excused this evening, and we do send our condolences to Caitlin. Her grandfather passed away. Carol Lang will be joining us from sunny Florida on the VoIP phone after we do our minutes, because if I have her join before the minutes, we have to, by state law, take a roll call vote to approve minutes, and she agreed. Probably not a good move. And with that, would someone like to make a motion to approve the minutes for the meeting of December 8th, 2015? So moved by Mr. Cummings. Do I have a second? Second by Shelley Jacoby. Any corrections, additions, or deletions? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. All those opposed? All those abstaining? Passes with 2 abstentions. Thank you very much. Tonight we're going to be reviewing the budgets of the elementary school, the upper elementary school, the middle school, the high school, and special services. And after we review the budget of the elementary schools, we are going to be having information passed to us on mental health expenses from Julia DeLuca and John Fabrizio. At this time, Matt's going to come up and help me work this funny machine over here so we can hopefully get a hold of Carol Lang and have her participate. And where did Matt go? I don't see him. Well, I do a song. There he is. Phone number.
Okay.
And after we get Carol on the phone, we just got to go through a couple of legal beagle.
670.
Yep.
Number you have dialed is not in service. Please check the number and try your call again.
Hi, Carol.
Okay, fine.
Carol.
Yep.
Okay, you're there on the phone. Thank you.
Yep.
And where are you at the present time?
In Satellite Beach, Florida.
Okay, and is there anybody with you?
Nope.
Well, there's one companion with you, right, Ginger? You
Well,
kidding?
if you count a cat.
Okay. So we got that all squared away. We are going to be reviewing the elementary schools budget first. So if you have anything you want, just speak up. You should be able to hear the conversation, and if you can't, we'll try and figure out something so you can.
Okay,
So-
I'm just trying to figure out how I do this so that I'm not talking over someone else.
Just say, stand or something like that. And what I'll do
Okay.
is, then I'll turn your microphone on so that everybody else can hear you, as opposed to just me. All righty. I, at this time, would like the elementary school team to come forward. No. No. First of all, welcome everybody. Who's the spokesman this year?
I
Would
am.
you like to introduce your illustrious team of leaders?
I would be very happy to do that. I am Emily Carter, the principal of Mastercola Elementary, and this is Michelle Romaine. She's our assistant principal at Mastercola, and then Kimberly Yarlott, the principal of Reeds Ferry, and Nick Kohler, the assistant principal of Reeds Ferry, and I have Bridie Bellmere, the principal of Thorntons Ferry, and Julie DeLuca, the assistant principal of Thorntons Ferry.
Okay. And the liaisons for the elementary schools this year are Bill Cummings, who is a team leader, John Hanson, and Shelley Jacoby. And as I asked, do you want to do your presentation first, or would you like the liaisons to?
I would turn it over to Bill Cummings. And before I do that, though, I just wanted to thank Bill Cummings and Shelley Jacoby and John Hanson for taking a careful look at our budgets and then also for spending time with us at Mastercola last week.
Okay. Bill, it's all yours.
Thank you, and thank you for the hospitality. It was very nice. Don't always get coffee cake wherever we go. Just a note to other schools. Thank you. So we met with principals Mrs. Carter, Mrs. Bellmere, and Vice Principal Kohler, along with two liaisons, Shelley and John, Shelley Jacoby and John Hanson. The highlights of the budget. Each school's budget includes funds for furniture replacement, representing the second of a 5-year replacement plan, which for most of the schools include mainly desks, chairs, bookcases, and in MES's case, replacement computer tables. Reeds Ferry School is looking for $1,800 to replace two 30-year-old basketball hoops, which are outside the school on the north playground. Also, their music equipment budget includes $1,090 for a replacement amplifier for the school's public address system, which has outlived its usefulness. In addition to replacement desks and chairs, Reeds Ferry School's budget is proposing to replace computer tables. I think I said that already. It's good that I had my editor take care of that. The Thorntons Ferry budget includes $29,800. I have that number right? $29,800 to purchase and install an engineered wood fiber climbing sliding apparatus for the new preschool. So that's what I had as far as a summary. I'll turn it over to my co-liaisons and see what you might have to add.
I am good. You captured everything, so thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd second that. I mean, the driving things for the budget were what you just mentioned, the amplifier, the new playground. So those are the items that were notable, I guess. Thank you.
Now it's your turn.
Well, I think that Bill Cummings captured everything that we have in our overview. And if anybody had any questions, we'd be happy to answer them.
Questions from anyone? Could you expound a little bit more on this playground that's being proposed?
Sure, I'd be happy to do that for you. So, in the hopes that Thorntons Ferry has preschool program next year, so all 3 schools would have neighborhood preschool programs. We don't have a playground location that's close enough to the facility for 3 and 4-year-olds, or that can be enclosed, which by law it needs to be enclosed for safety purposes. So we last year began looking at an appropriate location on site with the Director of Maintenance and Matt Chevenel to find a location and what the cost would be to prepare the land, fencing, playground equipment, and safety mulch and all of that.
And this would be exclusively for the preschool students, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Kevin Bobbitt.
Hello. So on the playground equipment, it's my understanding that the preschool addition there is not finalized. Is that correct? Or is it an app?
It is not finalized.
It's not finalized. Okay.
That's
So
correct.
if this stays in and that's not not approved, what happens to this? Will we still build the playground, or will we not?
I guess that would be to be determined
Okay.
at a later date.
Okay.
Davis Powell.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Brady, but I believe all the elements are in place for preschool right now. They're just, for Thornton's, they're just being housed at a different building. And what the plan is to move, once the playground is installed at Thornton's, is to move those those students back over to Thornton's. Is that correct?
Correct. The physical establishment of preschool programming at Thornton's Ferry is not yet finalized. However, our children are in preschool programs at both Reed's Ferry and Master Cole Elementary, correct?
Perfect. Does that help? Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Are you waiting for school board approval or state approval?
No, I believe we are waiting for final community approval.
I'm sorry, I couldn't. Final what?
Community approval?
Community approval. Okay.
And Stan, I believe by that it's just for the budget to pass at deliberative and at town meeting.
Okay.
Because that money is in the budget, not just for the playground, but also for the program at Thornton's.
Okay. Okay. Carol, do you have any questions?
Unfortunately, except for you, I'm not able to hear very well to hear any of what everyone else is saying.
Okay.
I'm not sure if it's the positioning of the mic or if it's just inevitable.
We're going to try to put a speaker facing this way, so hopefully you'll pick up what gets said.
Okay, because I can hear you fine, but everybody else is very faint and very garbled.
Yeah, that's because the mic for the unit is right next to me, and I've got the
Right,
microphone.
okay. Right.
So we've
So do what you
turned the
can and
speaker
we'll...
to see if that'll make it a little bit better.
Okay.
Do you have any questions, though, for the elementary schools?
Well, I may be repeating something that was said since I couldn't hear, but
That's okay.
I'm assuming the playground is because of the preschool proposal, and I don't know what the status is of that preschool, whether that is a done deal or whether that's still to be determined.
It's based on the budget being approved by the voters.
So if preschool is approved, then the playground gets approved too, and if one doesn't go, then the other one doesn't go.
That's the understanding.
Okay. That's all I wanted.
Okay. Any other questions? Yes, John.
Yeah, it was just kind of like the playground is a kind of a multifaceted aspect.
If I can stop you for 1 second. If you, there we go. Just trying to stop the feedback.
No.
If that other mic is not being used right now, make sure it's shut off.
It is.
Please. Thank you.
Yeah, so you have a budget for the equipment, and Tom has a budget to do the groundwork.
That's correct.
Yep. Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else? got off easy tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
very much for your time.
At this time, we'll invite Julie DeLuca and John Fabrizio up to the table. I was asked by the superintendent for them to be able to come and give us information on the mental health expenses. I know that last year there were some things taken out of the budget. There were a lot of questions on it, and you've been meeting with people and wanted to fill us in. Please make sure when you're going to talk, you know the green light on the microphone, and speak into the mic so that also Carol can hear from that speaker.
Thank you, and thank you for having us this evening. Am I loud enough?
Perfect.
Okay. So, John and I are here today as members of the District Mental Health Committee, and we'd like to talk about something that's broader than just looking at the mental health expenses, but talk about a plan that we have. Last year, as you mentioned, we had in our budget a mental health worker. After broader discussion and review of this, and also that we are very prudent with our resources and balancing the needs of our students in district, we had a broader discussion at the district level and really talked about, do we really want to hire a mental health worker for a particular school, or do we really want to look at this within a broader context of the district and better understand the needs of our students with regards to mental health across the district and across the schools? Superintendent Jaffrey asked Mr. Fabrizio and myself to spearhead a district mental health committee to really look at and study the needs and the problems that we have for mental health across the district. When you look at best practices out in the community and across the nation in terms of the complex needs of mental health, as we know, which we hear about in the news very frequently, most successful districts and communities have worked to help support students with mental health needs that have a system of care and learning supports that just doesn't involve the school, but also involves broader partners in the community. So we formed the District Mental Health Committee to explore and identify ways that we can improve the mental health supports for students. While we continue to raise academic standards in the school, we're also trying to meet the needs of our 21st century learners to better understand the complex needs they have in the area of mental health. So we have some questions that have guided our work, and then after we address some of the questions that John's going to talk about, I'll talk about a time frame, and then I'll talk about a little bit about what we see in terms of rollout.
Thank you, Julie. As we began our effort, we sort of thought of some critical questions that could lead our work. And we talked about, we said, what's the depth and the scope of where we are in Merrimack and where we are for our students? Really, what are our strengths as a district when it comes to our services for kids with mental health, and what are our weaknesses? And then how do we build upon those strengths and weaknesses to foster a further conversation, not only within our schools, but outside? How can we blend these district resources and community resources to really promote efforts that look at a broader scope and more of a continuum of health for all of our kids? Then we asked ourselves, what can we learn from other districts, from other state agencies, from other surrounding community agencies? How can that build upon us to help us bring things not only from within to our students, but from with outside of our district brought into our buildings to help our students? So we began those questions. And moving forward to improve the services, we hope that we can find out what are these obstacles to learning. What's getting in the way of learning for these students? What are those needs? And then once we further expand towards that, develop a thing we call the systems of care across the whole district. And when we continue those efforts, it will be done over a multi-year, multi-tiered approach that will affect all the students in the district and help us. So we're building mental health education for all students, not just those most needy.
So we as a committee have been meeting monthly, and representatives from each of the schools sit on our committee. So this is the collective work that we've also already presented to the school board and the community. And one thing that we're really doing this year is we're taking the time to do a needs assessment, to do some resource mapping, and to understand what the needs are in our district. As you all well can appreciate, the needs of a high schooler may look very different from the needs of a preschooler. And so we have a committee that we're looking at how can we capture data, how can we look at the needs, and then our goal is by June to present to leadership and to the community and the school board what we're recommending our plan of action to be. Until we understand completely what the needs and the problem is, we can't come up with a plan. Then at that point, once we get approval, we provide the information. We will come up with a multi-year plan, and within that, we'll be working very closely with community and state resources and within the district to come up with a plan and how to best support all students for the continuum of mental health. With that, we do not see any budget implications for this year. Again, we're all about understanding what the problem is and needs are, but also across the state, what resources and grants are available to provide the system of care and learning supports. At some point, there may be budget implications, but that would all be done within a plan and exactly with timeframes associated with that. At this juncture, we're not at that point. We're really in the planning stages.
Any questions for us?
First of all, thank you. And I would also like to point out that you folks are doing that at this committee at no additional expense to the district, which saves a lot of money. And it shows your dedication.
Thank
Are there
you.
any questions? Carol, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I'm not sure that there'll be an answer available, but I'll give it a shot. Because they don't have a proposal yet, I'm just wondering if they have a sense of whether they're looking to provide actual counseling services for students or whether this is more revolving around fine-tuning IEPs and, that sort of thing.
Thank you, Carol, for that question. At this juncture, I'm hesitant to say exactly what we're going to do. We are looking at it from a broad perspective, and so certainly when we look at the needs that we have and then we look at our resources, we will do a gap analysis to identify specifically how can we best service students in our district with regards to mental health. So it may be, I don't know, tweaking IEPs, or it may be in terms of system supports, how can we work with community agencies to provide supports to students that may have significant needs. At this juncture, we are not there yet. We're really in the needs assessment stage.
All right, thank you.
Anyone else have any questions or comments? I have a question. I'd say it's probably geared to John, but are these types of services something that would end up falling under special services budget lines?
I think when we finish our needs assessment, we're talking about more global than that. I'll be honest with you. I said where we are right now, what we've identified is not. It's everything down to from the beginning stages of instruction, right through to severe mental health needs on the other end of the continuum. So it's the whole broad base. So could some of it impact special services budget? Yes. Could some of it impact personnel? Yes, it could. Could some of it impact related services? Yes, it could down the road. I think it's all of those. The question is pinpointing multi-level services, not one area and one target, because it permeates all students in all areas of the buildings. It's not just one isolated incident of kids who have mental health issues.
And approximately how long do you think it's going to take to come up with a plan and cost items for it?
So thank you for asking that. It is a multi-year effort. When you look at any of the research out there in terms of what is effective for working with students, it is multi-years. So we see that this is a multi-stage plan. We will better understand what our needs are in June, and within that, we may, in stages, implement certain parts. With that, we will certainly, as part of our plan, itemize any budget implications, if any. We're working very closely. John and I have met with the DOE, with other districts. We're meeting. We have now 2 representatives from Merrimack on some key committees at the state level. We're also looking very closely at funding, what is happening across the state. As you all know and appreciate, there's much going on nationally and within the state. So it's very hard to say Merrimack is going to pay X when there may be other funding sources and other things that we can do within the community. But what I do know is any part of the plan will have very specific deliverables, will have deadlines, and will clearly highlight any budget implications for Merrimack, and it would be within a staged process.
So it's not going to be a case of Monday we have nothing for mental health, and Tuesday we're going to go full bore.
Absolutely not. I don't think we just do business that way anyway. So yes, it will be very much a methodical and well-communicated process.
You kind of alluded to this, but I'm curious, in light of the increased focus on mental health, you know, from everything we've seen and organizations and districts realizing that it's important, might there be certain kinds of services or programs that we could offer that might have a very direct funding from state or federal? You know, might things, I guess, come across your radar that you hadn't thought about doing, but because there's particular grants or money available, it's worth incorporating into your plan?
You're exactly there, and I think that's why we've gone off and we've met with the DOE and we've talked to them. We went up to the Department of Education, Julie and I, and sat there and talked about what's coming down to them. A lot of it's new for them. So when we talk about us in this process right now, the process is evolving across the state. It's got national recognition, it's got state recognition, and we're part of and putting players at the table for those state meetings that are happening. So hopefully we're getting direct information more readily and more quickly than we would if we weren't in those committees.
I mean, I love hearing this because if we're an early community on doing something like this, then we may stand to benefit more than other districts that aren't pursuing these kinds of opportunities right now. So, good work.
Anyone else?
Dan?
Yes, Carol.
If you could just pass along to them when they do eventually come forward to us with a proposal, I think it would be very helpful if they could kind of give us some overview of how their proposal compares or contrasts to, say, some other surrounding districts, so we have some sort of point of reference.
They're shaking their head in the affirmative.
Okay, great.
Anyone else? Thank you very much. It's been very informative. Next up on the list is the Upper Elementary School.
Good evening.
Good evening, Marcia. Why don't you introduce your lovely assistants?
Okay, I'm Marcia McGill, the principal of the Upper Elementary School, and this is William Morris, our assistant principal. Thank you for having us here this evening to talk about our 16-17 school budget. We'd like to start with our liaison, Mrs. Jacoby.
And you get to do the whole thing because Caitlin's
Flying
excused
solo.
and Matt Chuck's not here.
I know. So first of all, thank you for the time you gave us. It was great. So a couple of things. Their focus is going to continue to be on literacy and math. So they're going to continue on the next step as it pertains to texts. The other focus, again, is just how do we continue to have better equipment. A couple of things we're looking at that they are desperate in need of is cafeteria tables. They have a couple of new ones, but really need to kind of get that moving on, and that is in the budget. So thank you for giving us a tour of the cafeteria. So Mr. Maurer and I are very much in tune to the needs there. We also got a chance to look at the bookcases and the teachers' chairs as well that are in need. So we spent a good time with them, a good amount of time, so thank you for that. And we really feel that everything that they have asked for moving forward for the next school year is right on track and looks good, so thank you very much.
Okay, Marcia, it's all up to you now.
Thank you. I think Mrs. Jacoby really summed it up. We continue to purchase the materials that we need in the area of literacy, those resources to help teach, the fiction and nonfiction, as well as the skills of, comprehension and vocabulary and fluency in math to be able to implement our standards-based math program, those resources and materials that we need to do that. And then our furniture would be other significant item in our budget this year. If there are any questions, we'd be happy to answer for you.
Questions for the upper elementary school? Your new secure entrance is working well?
It's fabulous. It's wonderful. We're very pleased with it. It's so appropriate to be at that point of the building as you come right off Babusick and onto School Street, to have our entrance right there. And it is secure, and the office space is very accommodating. And it's a secure entrance for our building, and we're pleased to have it.
Okay. Anyone else? Have any questions for Up Elementary? Carol, do you have any questions?
No.
Okay. One last time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the list, the middle school.
Good evening.
Good evening. And if you would be so kind as to introduce you and your lovely assistant, please.
Absolutely. So my name is Adam Carriger. I'm the principal at Merrimack Middle School, and to my right here is Shauna Demore, the assistant principal at the middle school.
And the liaison for that were Lisa Mooney, who's the team leader, David Ilg, and Jordan. And do you want to do yours first, or would you like the liaison?
I would look towards Lisa to talk about our time.
Okay. It's all yours, Lisa.
Thank you. I just want to start off with snacks because that tends to be where we start all of these discussions. We had great food, some pumpkin bread that I think was homemade. Deb Wolfline is, she has big shoes, but it was really good. Thank you. So the school board meeting had been Tuesday night. Adam reached out to me Wednesday to try and get us rolling for this meeting. So we had a pretty short turnaround, so not everyone was available to meet. Jordan was not available, and David was available for a part of our time, so he came in late, had to leave early. But I had a great talk with the principal and the assistant principal. I did some dirty math here while we were waiting, and I think if I'm correct, the total increase in the budget for the school is about $5,000, probably a little less than that. And I think the biggest, that's overall, there's some reductions in accounts, some, increases, but overall it's about $4,500. And the biggest item going on at the middle school this year in this budget would be the volleyball team, adding a volleyball team. And the total cost of that is about $3,700. So the budget change is very modest, I think, and reasonable. The volleyball team right now is intramural. We're going to interscholastic. There seems to be a lot of interest in that, and the way that the high school is known across the state for their volleyball team, I think it makes sense to really start that in the 7th, 8th grade. school. So that I'm glad that they're doing that. We talked a little bit about enrollments just in general, across the district, across the state, and we think even across the country. We didn't have any real solid numbers, but it seems like public school enrollments are just continuing to decline. We talked a little bit about what is always on people's minds. Can we use some of that space at the middle school for special ed, for administrative functions? And, I think that the administration has considered a number of times how to reallocate that space and how to utilize it. And there's really not an easy answer, but we had discussion anyway. It's continuing. And what else did we do? We did a tour of the school. So one of the other items that are on the budget is replacing stools in the science lab. I had flashbacks when I walked in there. But I saw some of the new stools. They seem very sturdy and really fit the need. No more kids falling off those and breaking noses. So I only say that because it happened to my son many years ago, but not that our lab is dangerous, but he and his friends were goofing around, and so bloody nose, lots of trauma there. So that was really it. Also traumatized my daughter by walking past the gym, waving to her. So that was the extent of our tour. Really not a lot happening in the middle school budget. We had a good meeting, good food, good discussion. That's all.
Jordan, do you have anything you'd like to add?
I would say that it was well covered by Lisa, and we would be more than happy to answer any questions that you might have for us.
Bill Cummings.
Just was wondering whose idea was the volleyball team, and do you have somebody to coach?
We do not at this time have somebody to coach. Actually, one of the things that we discussed at the school board meeting was how to go about the team. Ultimately we need to make a decision and talk with the Tri-County League, which is the organization that we're a part of. Okay. And then from there we would look towards the coaching, and it's something that I would say is I've been in conversation with the high school about pretty regularly.
Thank you.
Shelley.
Are we one of the one of the last school districts that don't have volleyball for 7th and 8th graders in the Tri-County League?
There are quite a few that do have. I would say most of the surrounding areas, if you think of our sister districts like Bedford and Londonderry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
John Hanson.
Yeah, I was just looking at the budget on page 12. There's a tech ed equipment replace at the middle school. I guess the proposed budget this year is $1,000. Last year it was $0. The 2 years before that were over, I don't know, $28,000, $27,000.
So think of it like a textbook replacement type account. Our tech ed program is modularly based, computer-based program. Actually, we took a tour to the Family and Consumer Science, which we did in last year's budget cycle. We removed the equipment replacement because basically the equipment was being replaced for the most part, although we still use some of the equipment from that transitioned from the older module system to the newer module system that we have.
Okay. Thank you.
It is definitely a large difference.
I mean, we manage schools every year, right? And they're much the same as they were the year before, and it seems like kind of a great difference. And thanks for the explanation.
Gladly.
Carol, do you have any questions?
Well, yes, one thing, and I'm not sure if it has a budgetary impact or not, but I was approached by a parent, so I will pass this along. A parent was talking to me, and I know this was a concern even when the school first opened, when my daughter went there. about the fact that when kids stay after school for something, that there's virtually no cell phone service out there. And they were saying that they had understood that there was a proposal out there at one point to allow, I don't know if it was one or more than one of the cell phone carriers, to put up a tower on school district land, that then it would serve other places but would also serve the middle school with better cell service. And they asked me to see if I could find out if there was any status on that.
Matt Chauvinel's got to answer your question, Carol.
Hi, Carol. Matt Chevenel here.
Hi.
Years ago, we had tried to court several cell phone carriers, Verizon, Sprint, Nextel. There was Nextel back then. And all of them said the same thing, that for the amount that the tower would cost, it wouldn't generate the payback or increase in revenue by picking up enough customers in that general area. They usually look for high visibility in traffic areas along highways and whatnot, but there was no interest as far as that goes, and there still isn't any interest. We've tried doing repeaters inside the school as far as cell service goes, but I'm not sure how good that has been as far as being effective. So it kind of is what it is right now.
Okay, well, at least I have an answer to pass on, so thank you.
Thank you.
All set, Carol?
Yep.
Anybody else? I guess the question I would have is, what type of information and what do you expect may or may not happen in terms of expenses with this new road that's going to go in and muck up your entranceway?
I would invite Matt Chevnell to come up and touch base on that.
Well, Adam and I have talked about this, and as you all know, or probably not know, I've been integral as far as representing the school district with regards to the plan of the new road coming in or not coming in. As it stands right now, it's my understanding that the development and the whole project is on hold into perpetuity. I don't know when that's going to come back. At the point it does, I'm sure we'll have another chance to voice our concern as far as the way the intersection was to be configured, because that would definitely have an impact as far as the school goes and the school dismissal, having every bus having to stop at the new intersection before traversing 3 lanes of traffic coming and going to get onto Madeline Bennett Lane proper. So that would be something we'd revisit at that time.
Okay. Yeah, because that's going to cause massive traffic jams. And it's just going to cost the school district more money because the buses are going to be sitting there burning up more diesel fuel.
Well, the thing is, we don't pay for fuel, but what it's going to do is it's going to push back all the runs. It's going to delay the high school getting picked up, and it's going to push out the elementaries, the upper elementary. It's going to upset everything. A 10-minute delay there.
It's going to cost us more money
exponentially.
If they all got to do that.
Yeah, that is correct.
At some point in the contract, STA or whoever the vendor will be at that time is they're going to get paid for that extra fuel they're consuming. At least now it's a little bit cheaper than it has been.
That is true.
So we don't have to worry about that for a while.
Correct.
That's good. Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We are now moving on to the high school. Ken, how would you like to introduce your band of troubadours there?
Well, I have to my right Senior Assistant Principal Rich Zampieri, and to my left Mr. Peter Bergeron. And I will say, while I'm going to yield to Kevin to start tonight's program. We had a wonderful meeting with John. John really took us kind of page by page through our budget. Davis was also present. Kevin led the show, and we miss Carol. So we're very happy to hear that Carol is with us tonight.
Okay, and the liaisons were Kevin Bobbitt was the team leader, John Hanson, Davis Powell, and Carol Lang. Kevin, I guess you got elected to do the first go at it.
All right. Well, thank you. First, I wanted to thank everybody that attended and everybody on your team that helped put together the budget. I'm sure it was more than just the three of you, so a lot goes into it, so appreciate it. It's very thorough. I thought we had a productive meeting. We did have some food as well.
Thank you.
It's pretty good.
A wide array of muffins.
Right.
Yeah, no
coffee was
pumpkin
delicious.
bread.
Although I did not get the memo about wearing
I
a
just
vest.
got to interrupt you a second. 7:30 this morning in the maintenance building. We got nada.
So, where was I? After the delicious, the vest, we missed, anyway, we'll move on. So, we spoke in depth about everything in the budget. We did literally go line by line, so it took a while, but it was very informative. Some of the bigger items are on the cover page in the budget book that probably everybody's read, including the increase to the co-curricular transportation account, which I think we all agreed is interesting, important, and something that certainly I believe we should be including in the budget going forward. We also discussed the increase in students taking AP classes, which leads to, well, first of all, it's fantastic that so many kids in the district are taking high-level classes. The downside is that we have to buy a few more books, but I think that's a good downside to have. So, finally, there were the other significant thing were some purchases for the athletic programs, some equipment, things like that, which sounds like they need to be replaced. So, made good sense to me. That's really what I had. John, did you have anything?
John?
Yeah, well, I was expecting the crew to show up with football helmets on.
Well, we do want to express that John gave us a lovely historical perspective about football equipment from its origins in Carlisle College, I believe. Yes. And Pop Warner. Yes.
Oh, were you wearing a leather helmet back then, or what?
Well, it was mentioned.
It was mentioned.
Do you have anything else, John?
No, that was Kevin kind of covered it. We, as Ken mentioned, kind of went through line item by line item. Not every item, but maybe things that had shifted either to an increase or a decrease, just to understand what the difference was. And I got kind of lots of little notes that everything that we asked was explained. Some were kind of totally new things or different ways to do the budget. I mean, certainly one of the new items was the co-curricular transportation, which was one of the bigger items, actually, and a well worth change or addition to the budget. So
I think for the public who would watch this on television, perhaps a little bit of explanation as to what you're talking about on the increase in transportation for co-curricular.
Well, you want me to swing at this, Ken?
No,
or-
you could certainly yield to us. We've certainly been discussing with the board, really for the last 5 years, bringing equity to co-curricular transportation as well as to athletics. And we've talked about for years how the athletics program has a very fixed schedule with very fixed costs, and how that's not necessarily the case with co-curriculars. We have a wide variety of them. They get advanced beyond the state to regional to national competitions and so on. So each year we've increased the budget significantly. And then in the past couple of years, the board has asked us to break out the cost, the real cost in transportation for each of these groups. Mr. Bergeron did a phenomenal job of breaking out the real costs. And ultimately what we did was we broke out the real costs, added approximately 10%, which brought us to the figure pretty much equitable, in fact, the same number that we are offering for co-curricular. So it is genuine equity. We've determined that if, in fact, we've over-budgeted for co-curriculars, which I think is actually maybe a good thing as opposed to under-budgeting, worst-case scenario, that money would go back to the taxpayer.
Okay, thank you. Davis, do you have anything to add from your experience there?
Priscilla was excellent in preparing things for you, Ken.
Oh, she always is. She is an exemplary administrative assistant, and I have had exemplary administrative assistants that have made me look good in the 18 years that I've been in the Merrimack School District. We are very fortunate.
She is the one that runs this building.
There you go. Thank you, Davis.
Just to add a little bit to what Kevin said regarding the AP courses, the additional AP courses, I think it's important for us to recognize that the high school has been on the AP honor roll for the last 3 out of 4 years?
3 out of the last 4 years, the only high school to do so, and what that means is that we offer and have been offering more and more advanced placement courses, but coupled with that, our students are scoring higher and higher on those. So what we've done is really unprecedented.
So the investment is well worth it. Our students are getting a bigger bang for their buck, and obviously it's helping them out as they apply to colleges and go on outside of the high school. So, as I said before, when you presented to the board, thank you very much. I know I've been the one spearheading the request for the co-curricular transportation piece, and I appreciate the effort that was put into it this year. And as we discussed, you got to start somewhere. This is a great start, and as we get more data, I think it's going to give us a better sense of what funding is needed in that account to bring that equality, that parity to that program.
Carol, do you have anything you want to add?
No, other than I want to agree with what Davis said, that it's long bothered me, the inequities between the co-curricular and the athletic expenses, and so I'm happy to see that we're getting more equity in those.
Okay. Now, Ken, your turn. Whoops. Now, Ken, it's your turn.
My turn.
You can add and
No, I
whatever you would
absolutely
like.
am thrilled. I mean, that was an outstanding presentation. The questions were all great. It was probably the most thorough liaison meeting that we've had. And I think as long as we're confident that Carol's had the chance to read the budget statement, the budget overview, I'm more than satisfied.
Okay. Questions for the high school? Boy, this is the easiest you've ever gotten off.
I'm really feeling good about this evening, so I want to thank you all very much.
Well, I think you need to thank Priscilla.
That's right.
You know, there's a saying we did a number of years ago in the ambulance. Paramedics save lives, and EMTs save paramedics. Doctors save lives, nurses save doctors.
And apparently administrative assistants save principals.
Right.
So I'm going to get a copy of this. I'm going to make a DVD and make sure I give it to Priscilla.
Yes, I would do that.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up, special services. And flying solo tonight is John Fabrizio, our Special Services Director.
Good evening again.
And the liaisons for Special Services were Bill Cummings, the team leader, Caitlin Ortega, and Kevin Bobbitt. And John, what would you like to do?
I'm going to follow suit, and I think that I will lend to Bill Cummins and Kevin Bobbitt. We had a really nice early morning conversation, and they were very patient to wait for me while I was stuck on 293 in the snow. And we had a nice conversation, and healthy granola bars and some coffee, though, for them. But it was a very pleasurable conversation, and as I begin, I will echo what Mr. Johnson said. The preparation of both of them sitting in front of me led to a very high-level conversation. And we not only talked about kind of what you'll see on paper, but kind of some visioning and some pieces that really helped us look at a budget that really is built around kids, and it really is. It's built around what needs the students currently have, and it's built from finally ground up based on student needs. And they did a wonderful job kind of both listening and giving feedback to me. So I will turn to Bill and thank them both.
Thank you, John. Well, Kevin Bobbitt and I met with John Fabrizio, and Caitlin unfortunately was unable to attend. If you spend any time looking at this budget, you realize it's different from any other. The budget is projecting forward what is needed for students. About enrollment, or as far as the population, over the last 4 years, correct me if these numbers are wrong, John, but you said the population's gone from 685 to 680 to 675, and currently you're projecting 665 for this coming year?
That was close, Bill, but if I'll add some numbers. It went from 685, 680, 676, and then 665 for this year. Okay. So it's close.
For this year, okay. So it's been a progressive decline, hovering around, you said 17.5 to 17.6 roughly of the population. Based upon a couple of state and federal laws and regulations, and out comes the jargon, which, if anybody knows me, drives me crazy, so I'll spell it out for you. 2 major laws required of schools which accept federal funds. Tonight you'll hear more about FAPE, Free and Appropriate Education, and LRE, which is Least Restrictive Environment. Overall, the budget's about a 2% increase over last year. In the budget again this year, it was cut from last year's budget, are split AC units to replace portable systems, which are at present heavily reliant on the maintenance department. John showed us some Lenovo ThinkPads for computer-based assessments. He tells us that the scores go much quicker when the assessor and the student can each have a computer. It scores quicker, it scores on a cumulative basis, scores along the way, so it's more efficient on their time. They also are asking for money for training on CPI, which is Crisis Prevention Institute. We need to recertify 16 instructors in the district and order supplies for those. Mandatory training, which is detailed on page 5 of the Special Services budget. And currently, John, is it currently 300 people are trained in district at the moment?
Approximately 300, yes.
That's what I have as far as a summary. Kevin, do you have anything to add? Okay. Thank you.
John, would you like to add anything to what Bill, Kevin have done?
I'll just mention, I'll mention briefly that I think in the budget, that what you won't see in the budget, what we talked a little bit about too, is preschool. And I know it was raised when Bridie sat at the table earlier. And in my budget, there is no budgetary impact on this year's budget because of preschool, because the personnel currently exists over at Reeds Ferry and Mastercola Elementary School. And if this budget does go through and the playground is approved, we'll be able to move the personnel currently who exists over to those other buildings, and the spacing is available.
Kevin.
So one thing I wanted to add is that, so both last year and this year, we talked a lot about technology, iPads in particular, and I did ask you a question about iPads. I think a phrase you used before was, we don't have to have a Cadillac for everybody, but we need to provide something good. And solid, and I posed a question of, well, why iPads? And we talked about, they are the most expensive. You can argue whether they're the best or not, but they certainly are the most expensive. But you talked about how you use them where they apply, and they're very good for certain things, for student applications. They're more durable, things like that, but you're able to use some less expensive technology for maybe an administrator or teacher who isn't going to be as rough with technology, for example. And I was pleased to hear that you're being thoughtful and responsible with the money and buying the appropriate technology for the application. So thank you.
Speaking of that, when you get those, John, do you have any discussions with Nancy Rose at all?
One of the things I did talk about the board a lot is I've been fortunate to be right after Nancy over the last 3 years preparing my budget, and it's always nice because she sets a nice stage, and she uses the term organic a lot, and when she talks about how technology is born and it's organic and it grows the need. And her and I discuss often about that, and I think that what's been nice is when it comes to Nancy, I'm sure she'll talk to you about it too, but she described to the board when we presented that she knows what vendors to go to for what, and she knows what technologies are fitting more of a what's more global technology when it comes to infrastructure things and what's down to the device, and she knows kind of who to go to for when. So of course, and yes, I use that resource, and we communicate often about technology and the pieces that what to put in whose hand, and that was some of the conversation Kevin was alluded to, that I've come to know that for a preschooler to put a device in their hand that's not durable doesn't make much economical sense because you're going to keep replacing it. For a high school teacher who needs to just be able to access PowerSchool often throughout the day, be able to look at using online applications to keep notes and things like that, a less expensive tablet's better. And I used Nancy and talked to her about purchasing around that, and then what fits with our network, and will it interface with what we're doing currently with Office 365. We have those conversations often.
Okay. Carol, do you have any questions on the special services budget?
Yeah, one. When I hear that the numbers of students classified for special ed is going down, I can look at it two ways. One is our population of students in need of special services is declining, which would be a good thing. The other is, could it be that the threshold for classifying students for special needs services is been raised? And I wonder, how can we determine which is the case so that we know that we are truly providing services to every student in need?
Well, I think, Carol, again, as I said, we had some wonderful conversation around what was on the paper and what was beyond it. And you asked a question that was kind of beyond the paper. And what we've talked a lot about is there's a district-wide effort around a thing called response to intervention. And that means basically that every student has strengths and weaknesses. And we are universally meeting. So every building in the district is sending representatives to a district-wide meeting that we are doing, and looking at really all of our data to start determining what our kids need. So we're not only waiting till kids fail, we're trying to collect data along the way to say how do we help intervene prior to that piece and prior to have those needs met. And when we can't have those needs met with just classroom accommodations or just simple what we call good teaching beyond that, that's when we move to our special ed process. So what the numbers do say, though, is that we've stayed consistently around 17%. So I don't think, although the numbers have declined, so has our enrollment. And we stay pretty consistent about where we are with those pieces.
Okay.
Any other questions, Carol?
No, that's it.
Okay. Questions from anybody else in the Budget Committee? John?
Well, yeah, I mean, When I kind of look at this, is kind of see what changes year to year, and, well, like, for instance, on pretty significant one on page 14, it's the SEP tuition on public outside for middle school, I guess. You know, in the 14-15, it was $65K. The next year, $195. Next year, $481, and this year, down to $135. So down like $340,000. What's shaking?
Many factors.
Yeah.
First of all, I think Bill alluded to two laws that govern kind of the operation of every day in special services. And it's our least restrictive environment and free and appropriate education. We have to provide both of those. And what least restrictive environment tells you is that you have to provide education as close to the possible classroom as you can. So that's what the law tells us. We have to try the classroom. Doesn't affect it. We have to go to specialized program. After specialized program within our district, we have to go outside our district to look at specialized programs. We look within our state first and then out of state. Sometimes kids are so severe that we have to go out of state. But our goal is always to do what? Bring them back in closer to meet least restrictive environment, closer to us. What you'll see in fluctuations, because for two reasons. One, that may be the case that we've been very successful with a program and that child's coming back closer to us. Sometimes back into our district, sometimes to a neighboring surrounding program. Other times you see fluctuation because the child got older and moved out of that line item into the high school item.
Right, yeah.
Sometimes they move out of district. Sometimes we bring them back into school. You know, there's multiple factors that lead into why those fluctuate in a year to year.
Okay, thank you.
But
Yes,
overall,
a lot of swings and roundabouts.
right. Overall, if you look at the out-of-district costs this year, I think for the first time I presented in 4 years, there's no increase. So we've been able to, when you take all the accounts, elementary, middle and high, in-district, in-state and out-of-state, and you take all 6 of those accounts and you put them together and look at the pool and the final number on those, they do even out this year. And that's nice to be able to say that.
And some of these residential programs are just, you know, when you look at them, you think they're outrageous because you could spend $250,000 on one child in certain residential programs. And if you can bring that person back into the district and satisfy their needs, it's going to cost a heck of a lot less. But in some cases, it's not. It isn't going to. It's not worth doing because you're not going to be able to do the program. Jordan.
Is there specific funding that the state provides for those kinds of situations, or are we, as a district, you know, on the hook 100% for some of those above and beyond situations?
So the way it works is a cap of catastrophic aid, they call it. And then there's further reimbursement through catastrophic aid. That doesn't come in the physical year, though. That comes in kind of, we spend the money, and then we get reimbursed for it. So the money has to be there to allocate, to spend, to have the child in placement by law. And then after that, in the following year, it's brought back in and brought back into the general fund.
Is catastrophic determined as a particular amount or percentage based on our overall budget, or is it based on, you know, what's that based on?
It's based on state average. So the state looks at it and says, here's a cap. And they determine this. It comes out in a memo from the state, and there's a cap for what it is. And it changes and fluctuates yearly. It tends to, unfortunately, go up every year. So it's less than we can recoup. But, yeah, that's something that we do, and that's part of the management of our office. We look at that, and we have to track a lot of data to be able to do that. But that's, again, Ken spoke of his administrative assistants. I will give good praise to mine as well, who do a wonderful job at looking at that and keeping that data.
All set, Jordan? Anybody else? I will say this. You do a heck of a job. And it's not an easy job. And the unfortunate part is, you know, we have to take care of these kids, and the unfortunate part is it does cost money.
Thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome. Now, I know that a lot of these out-of-district placements, those rates for those students, those are set by each particular state?
That is correct.
Okay. Any other questions for John? Thank you very much. At this time, I would like to ask if the superintendent or her assistant or our business manager have anything else they would like to say to the Budget Committee about the presentations this evening. I know you got to be here next week, but I just wanted to check. You're perfect. Okay. We will now go to public participation. And I see we wowed everybody to look like a blue seat. So I will close public participation and move on to other. One of the things I wanted to do is remind everybody that on February 9th, that's the night we have a meeting and the public hearing. That meeting and public hearing will be held at the Mastrocola Elementary School APR. And the reason for that was that the town council decided to change the location for the primary election to the high school. And they will be using this room for same-day voter registration, I believe. So on that night, and that night only, and if we get snowed out of the February 9th meeting, our snow date is on February 11th, but that will be held at the high school if we have to use it.
Stan?
Yes.
That's, just to be clear, that's where the last meeting was, right? That's the APR building room?
Yes.
With the big mural on the wall and, yeah, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, nice cozy place. But if you couldn't hold it there if they were having the election there, because it'd be absolutely no parking. The only good thing about it is that there's not going to be any school that day. Now, other than leaving this premises, is there anything else any of the Budget Committee members need to bring up? Carol, do you have anything you need to bring up?
No, I'm all set.
All righty. At this point in time, Carol, I am going to say goodnight to you, and we will chat later.
All right, good night to everyone.
And as I stated earlier, the reason we were doing that is to avoid a roll call vote for minutes and other things. I don't see anybody having anything else. I'll entertain a motion to leave. Moved by Mr. Cummings. Do I have a second by Mr. Bobbitt? All in favor? Thank you very much. We will see you next Tuesday night on January 26th, and we will be reviewing the library and technology services, maintenance, food service, and district-wide. And good night, everybody. Please be safe and try to stay warm.
Because they're too